So welcome to Launch Stories. So we're all about connecting and educating with Chilliwack entrepreneurs, and I appreciate you all coming out. This is really a great monthly event that we're doing. And thanks to our sponsors for helping us put these on. We've got the Chilliwack Economic Partners Corporation, Chilliwack Innovation Network, and the University of the Fraser Valley. And then for our partners, these are the folks that are putting on the events. We've got Cowork, Chilliwack, Currency Marketing, and Wisebox. So let's hear it for those folks. And special thanks to Elise McAlpine. She's running the AV equipment. You can see her in her domain over here. Yeah. And I am thrilled to introduce you to our guest this evening. Please give a warm Launch Stories welcome to Alberto Álvarez Morphy, the co-founder of IncentivAction. IncentivAction. I said IncentivAction. It's an inventive company, but it's IncentivAction. So I pulled up some pictures, and you helped me find some. And you grew up in Mexico City, which is a city of, I think, 7 or 8 million people.
Okay. The population of Mexico City and its the urban area is 2/3 of the Canadian population. It's over 15 million people.
Wow.
No, it's huge. It's to drive from one side of the city to the other, no traffic. It's about an hour.
So you're Alberto the Third.
Yes.
I was asking you, is your son named Alberto? And you said, no, it stops there.
No, it's over. No. He's not carrying that cross.
So there's 3 boys in your family growing up?
Yes.
And you're the eldest?
I'm the eldest, and then there is Mauricio and Federico.
Athletics were huge for you growing up. Were you naturally competitive, or just like sports, or?
No, it's a disease. And both me and Mauricio, the next one after me, we have the disease. So we could not. There was never a friendly game of anything between us, and everything was competitive, and we did sports competitively. Since we were, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years old. I started competing when I was 7 years old.
And one of your big things you were into as a child was sailing. Now, this is ocean sailing, but you also did lake sailing.
I started in dinghies, yes. I sailed Optimist. Optimists are sailboats that they have a flat front. They're like bathtubs with sail. No, they run when it's blowing. They really go. And I won my first national championship on an Optimist. I've won 7 national championships in different classes. And so. And
your team, you had qualified to compete at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles.
In LA, that is correct.
But something happened.
Yes, December 20, we were qualified for LA, Summer Olympics 84, and on December 24th, 1983, my helmsman, he died. He got in a crash. He got killed we were young, stupid, and we drank more than we should. And he went out partying with some friends, and he never came back. So we could never. There was an alternate team. Those were the guys that actually sailed on the Olympics, but I couldn't make it because we tried to make the change. So the helmsman from that boat and I, you don't. There's very little conversation when you're doing this. And the other guy knows what you're doing, and they know, and you have your quirks on how you go under the boom and then hike on the other side, and then it's 5 months' time was not, and trying to get me to sail with this guy in 5 months' time, it was never going to happen, but then go sail with the other guy, then now I'm disrupted so it's God didn't want it to happen, I guess.
And so you transitioned from those bathtubs to the...
And I went from dinghy sailing to ocean racers.
And that was in Acapulco?
I sailed that the ocean racing championship in Mexico happens in Acapulco, and it runs from January to December. We sail the last weekend of every month, 2 races on Saturday, 1 race on Sunday. I did that, but I've sailed Transpac, which is LA to Hawaii, Newport to Cabo San Lucas, Long Beach to Cabo San Lucas, and I've done I've done a fair amount of offshore races as well.
And so at some point you said, okay, enough sailing, I'm going to subject myself to pure torture, and I'm going to become a triathlete. And not just a triathlete, an Ironman triathlete. And just for those of you that aren't aware, that's a 4-kilometer swim followed by a 180-kilometer bike, followed by a 42-kilometer run. And you've done 5 of those.
I've done 5 of those. It's I know no measure. I cannot have a little ice cream. So if I'm going to buy ice cream, I have to buy the Ben & Jerry's pints, because if I buy the tub, I will eat the tub. I cannot open a pack of cookies and have some cookies. I will have the cookies. If I buy an apple pie at Save on Foods, I will not have a piece of apple pie. The apple pie will be gone by the end of that evening.
All right.
So and that was it. I started doing triathlons, and then I did a half Ironman, and then I did an Ironman, and then I had to do another, and then I stopped because of the COVID, because there were no more events, there were no more. I stopped by COVID. Now I look like COVID, but that's a different story.
Took a pandemic to slow you down, obviously. And so this was just more of a random photo. I had to circle it because that's you cliff diving. So was this more just for fun, or was this competitive as well?
When you row around up in boats and stuff, you end up going to fantastic places, just going from one place to the other. And then there was I actually jumped from up here, which doesn't, and it's a miracle that picture exists. A friend of mine took it. He's as blind as a gopher, and he didn't know how to operate a camera. This is 1987, 88. There's no phones, there's no. He had to use a camera and phone. He didn't know how to use the camera. He could not see beyond his nose, and he got that picture, so I don't know how that happened.
Well, just to be fair, it's not the greatest picture. but it got you in it.
But there's another picture of my brother on that same day doing the jump. It's just it's a blur. So it's amazing that actually came out.
So this was really on the personal side, but you really channeled all of that into your career. And we had a pre-meeting, and it was one of the challenges with this interview was, I think, trying to get Alberto to condense this down to like 50 minutes, because it's a very long, many-chapter story. But your first real job, you said you were an accounting helper. Now,
hell on earth. It was the most tedious job. It was a mill, a wheat mill, and I had to make sure that the orders had been fulfilled correctly. How many sacks of oh my God, no, not wheat, the byproduct, the actual flour.
Got it.
How many sacks of flour actually went out? And they had these very long sheets of, okay, truck number 4, 25 sacks of these, 24 sacks of these. And I had this huge mechanical adding machine. I was like, And my soul withered every. No, it was awful. But I learned how to work. I learned how to make money, and I learned how to not depend on my parents. So
and I
it's,
also believe another byproduct of that job is you became a Lotus 1, 2, 3 expert. Was it at that job or a subsequent?
It was the actual next job.
Oh, okay, got it. I'm trying to piece all this together. I thought I had it perfect. I've already stumbled out of the line.
And yes, they sent me, and this is really nice for Lotus 1, 2, 3 screen. No. I had a green
Okay, I
screen.
saw the green and the black one, more
It
DOS.
was a green, and there was here. Look, there's a mouse. There were no there was no mouse. All the commands. There was no menu, so you had to know by memory what you wanted the worksheet to do. So and I learned all the Lotus 1, 2, 3 commands. I had to learn them by memory. And to this day, if you go into Excel, there's an options part there, and you can select transitional navigation keys. And you click on that, you can still use the Lotus 1, 2, 3 commands, and I use Excel without a mouse.
And so you jumped from that first introductory hell job to a big corporate multinational, and that was the start of your corporate career. And it's a brand that we're all familiar with and use every day, and it was Procter & Gamble.
That is correct. I worked for P&G. I was a brand manager for Zest, the soap. Zest in Mexico is the largest selling soap in Mexico. And it's a market with over 50 brands of soap. And we had a little over 20% of the market share. So, so we were the kings of soap, but within P&G, but not P&G. I mean, we paid the bills for P&G in Mexico, us and a laundry detergent. We were the bacon bringers to the company. Everybody else was just spending the money that we were making. But also, it was so big. Zest in Mexico is that when we had the Zest North America meetings with the Zest people from the U.S. and Canada, we had to take the lead because we sold probably 2 or 3 times the amount of soap that they sold. So it was really big.
So you were a brand manager. How do you get a job as a brand manager? Did you go to a job fair? Did you answer an ad?
I went into P&G. They had this seminar. It was called the International Marketing Seminar, the IMS. And they held it at a hotel. I applied. I don't remember how I applied, but I applied. I got accepted, and it was 4 days and 3 nights in a hotel. They gave you your own room, and they had all the meeting rooms in the hotel booked. And then there were seminars. But the reality is that at the end of the day, they would give you cases, and they would divide you into groups, and you had to do the cases, pull the whole night to present the case the next morning. And of course, it was a recruiting event. So they were seeing, okay, who is taking which role, who is doing what, and then I got an offer to work at P&G, and I was like, okay, withering away and dying, and so yeah, I'll go work for P&G. I didn't like P&G, but I knew that people were poached from P&G. So and when you get poached from P&G, you shortcut probably 2 or 3 levels in the corporate world. So they didn't take you you don't leave P&G at this level to go at this level somewhere else. You leave P&G here, and you probably land somewhere over here somewhere else. So and that's what I was looking for. It's because I didn't like the culture there.
And you told me one other thing is that they didn't know a particular detail.
Yes. And it worked perfectly for me. I started working when I was in my second semester in college. But like working at a job and going to the office, and then I wasn't waiting tables or no. I had a 9-to-5 job, and P&G was fantastic for me because the hours were 7:30 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, straight. And then I could go to school from 6 to 8. So it worked perfectly for me. And then one day my boss was telling me, can you stay a little longer? Because we need to do so. I can't. Why? Because I have to go to class. What do you mean you have to go to class? Yes, I have class. I have class at 6. I have to go and I'm presenting the project that we were in, so I cannot miss class today. But what do you mean you're in school? Yes, I'm in college. Why didn't we know? We didn't know that. We don't hire people in school here. You have to have graduate with. Why don't you have a degree? Because I am in school. They don't pre-give you the degree. You have to go and do the work, and then they give you the degree. But that's all wrong. No, it's not wrong. Why? Because nobody asked me. If somebody, what, I'm leaving now, and so no, I didn't leave, and that's I just stayed there and said, well, just don't publicize this. What do you mean don't publicize? Everybody knows I work here. Who is everybody? Everybody at school.
So sure enough, 3 years into your P&G career, you were poached by Xerox.
By Xerox,
another
yes.
huge multinational.
And but that's Xerox. So if you look at their logo today, that has nothing. We're talking. I wrote to Xerox with Fred Flintstone. This is all pre-Meteorite, okay? We sold copiers, not multifunctional equipment or laser printers. No. We sold copiers. That's what we sold. It's at Xerox. So it's yeah.
And you got into telemarketing.
I went into the telemarketing area, but I was supposed to do marketing campaigns for the telemarketing operations. That was supposed. It's such a weird name. I was the telemarketing marketing manager. So I was supposed to do campaigns that were, and I did one. I did one, and it did very well. We broke records and stuff. But then I said, well, you're operating like this is wrong. What do you mean it's wrong? It's wrong. It's wrong. The way that you have the salespeople outside and how it's divided and the regions that every salesperson has to cover, they're wrong. They're all the same size. No, they're not. Yes, they're all 1 kilometer or 1 square kilometer, yes. But this guy in 1 square kilometer has 20 businesses, and this other guy, which is in the middle of Mexico City, has 1,000 businesses, because you're not taking into account that this kilometer goes upwards. So there's way more businesses, so the density of businesses is different. But why do we do? No. So, and then I spent a bunch of time redesigning all of the sales regions of Xerox. Xerox only sold directly in 5 cities in Mexico: Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Puebla, and Tijuana. And so for those cities, I did this. And then how many telemarketers? Because these guys, what they were doing is where they were cold calling people based on the phone book. This is how long ago this was, okay? There is no internet, they'd open up the phone book and they would start making calls to the internet, and then they would get appointments for the salesperson to go and visit that. But then 5 people were getting appointments for one salesperson, and then, of course, that salesperson, he could not carry the workload. So at first we divided how many salespeople do we need to cover these territories, and then how many people go into each territory, and then how many telemarketers do we need to create the leads for these people. And it worked fine. And then the rest of the country was served by, I don't know, I'm going to call them dealers, concessionaires or dealers. So that's, and then I did this for every single concessionary, Xerox concessionary. So, and out of those, many of them, no, you don't understand the business in this region of the country, and you have no idea what you're talking about. They don't listen to me. But the guys that did listen, they made 100% better than the guys that didn't listen. But I'm not that smart. It's method and numbers, and if you can do the math will always give you the answer that you're looking for.
So a theme so far is just kind of a tenacious, willing to rock the boat a little bit.
Not a little bit, make a lot of waves. And, when two people are jumping out with life, they're going for their life rafts, but those people you don't need anyway. So.
And so this was another 3-year stint. So you did 3 years at Procter & Gamble and 3 years at Xerox, and then you were recruited once again to Banamex. And
Banamex.
It's the largest bank
Banamex
in Mexico.
Was at the time the largest bank in Mexico. Today it's called Citibanamex. It was then bought by Citi, and here I was still contacted because I had worked at P&G. So they still wanted an ex-P&G person. But they needed someone that already had more seniority. Because yes, from P&G you will go from here to here, but you will not go from here to here. So they needed someone that had been at P&G and that was already here. So it's just another little step. And they wanted to create the first loyalty program in Mexico. There were no loyalty programs, no point schemes, no nada, nil, zip. They didn't exist. But in Mexico and probably 5 banks in the US already had them. There was this, again, I went to my job with Fred. We had to take our feet down and then we run so the car would start.
And so for those that don't know, what's the basis of a loyalty program? Like, what's involved?
This is a scientific term that we've coined at IncentivAction. We call it monkey banana. Monkey banana. The monkey learns that if he does this, he gets the banana. So use my card, get these points. But it goes monkey banana, monkey banana. Everybody. And then, is that all? No. Once you know how to do this, you will continue to do it for the rest of your life. It's become a habit. So then it's monkey, banana, pear. And then it's monkey, banana, pear, pineapple, monkey, banana. But it has to be one by one. You cannot ask someone to do, okay, I want you to go, okay, monkey, tomorrow. Banana, pear, pineapple, apple, watermelon. Then the monkey gets confused because you haven't fulfilled the very first promise, the banana. So what we did is we had to create a program that would make people use our card instead of the competition's card. It's super simple. If a person has on average 3.2 cards in the wallet, why are they going to use ours? And that's the program that we developed. And it was a pain because this it didn't exist. So how do we go about creating this? And just to share the daunting idea of how are people going to redeem these things, this is, and we're talking in the millions of cardholders. And these millions of cardholders living, I mean, I just told you the size of Mexico City. Now, the country, now, what if the one person in the city wants something and it's over there? How do we get it to him? Or then she redeems something in Cancun. How are we going to get this to her in Cancun? And we were having discussions in one meeting, and I was thinking, I have 2 or 3 synapses a year, and I had one that day, so that was really cool. He said, hey, we're a bank, right? Yes. And when we give people payment methods, do we not? Yes. Well, why don't we create a points account? I mean, we have a banking system. It handles any currencies that we throw at it, it handles. Why don't we just invent a new currency in that system that's called points? And then we deposit all the points into that account, and we give a person a debit card so he can go with that card and purchase with points. And then we don't have to have anything else, because with that card, whatever he goes and buys, it's for free. It's not a cashback, because a cashback, when I am the public enemy number uno of cashback. Because you get nothing. Nothing. You may, when you, in actuality, when you go and you get your cash back, the only thing that you get is that you owe less. But you don't get anything. But if you go with this card and you buy a pair of sneakers, every time you're walking with your sneakers, you remember how you got them. If you buy a TV, every time you turn on the TV, you remember how you got it. Rewards are about experiences. And if you are not giving an experience, you are not giving a reward. It doesn't matter how much you're trying to convince yourself that you're doing it, you are not. If people cannot touch it, it's not real. It's not a banana.
Okay, I could listen to you all day, but we need to move this along.
Okay, sure.
So somewhere along the line at Banamex, you've reinvented or rolled out this amazing program, and you caught wind of a scholarship program that they had for continuing education, essentially.
That was actually the reason that I went to Banamex. This was a very famous program in Mexico. And Banamex sent people, and I didn't work, I did not want to be a banker, but I want to get an MBA. And Banamex was famous for a scholarship program for paying MBAs, full scholarships, full ride. You got not only the tuition, they gave you money to rent an apartment, buy your groceries, pay for your ticket to go back and forth at the beginning of the semester, at the end of the semester. A full ride means a full ride. And so that's why I took the job at Banamex, so I could go back to school.
And so you took that and you applied for, I believe you were accepted into Cornell, NYU, Dartmouth, and you picked Cornell.
Yes, Cornell was, Cornell was my number one choice anyway, so when
because
I got...
You're in beautiful 30-degree plus weather in Mexico City, and now we're going to go to upstate New York.
It's, yeah. It's very sunny.
Obviously, it's an amazing school with a huge reputation.
But the MBA program at Cornell, it was number one in two things: organizational behavior and operations. and a very close second in accounting. Managerial accounting, not the withering part of the accounting, okay? And and one thing that I learned very early, even in the withering part of my life, is that people make companies. That's it. People make companies, and you will be as successful. And I learned this from sports too. Your team will be as successful as the weakest member. So, organizational behavior is what I wanted to specialize on, and Cornell had the best organizational behavior program of all MBAs.
And so that was a 2-year essentially hiatus from...
Yes. No, I became a student again. And
and so the
it
deal...
was wonderful.
But the deal with that is that you must owe Banamex something.
The whole thing, the full ride, of course.
But in true Alberto fashion, I see how your mind works. It's like, you didn't go back to Banamex.
No.
You went to Citibank.
I went to Citibank, yes.
So how did that work?
If you don't go back to Banamex, then they immediately, the day that you say, I'm not going back, they give you, they extend you a personal loan, and you owe us this amount of money. Knowing that, when I was negotiating my signing bonus with the Citibank, well, first we negotiated salary, then we negotiated signing bonus. Okay, we're cool, this is it. Sign on the dotted line, I can't. Why? Because I owe Banamex this amount of money. But why didn't you say that before? Because we were not discussing that. We were discussing my salary and my signing bonus. Now, that is settled, but I cannot sign because of... And so they bought 60% of my debt. So I could go work for them. Citibank had just purchased a bank in Mexico. Citibank had, when the consumer operations of Citibank in Mexico to that point was 5 branches and probably 1,000 credit cards. I mean, they ran this out of an Excel spreadsheet. And they bought a bank that was, to them, huge. It was called Banca Confia. And but it's and it had a national presence, but not in every city and every town. But let's just say major cities. But now they went from 5 branches to 70, and from 1,000 credit cards to maybe 1.5 million, and that it was. They were overwhelmed. So they were hiring people that had experience in the big banks. And but for this position, Citibank only hires people with MBAs. So they were looking for us in B schools in the U.S. So that's how I ended up there. And but they really were in over their heads. First thing they tasked me to do was to develop the youth market. From the day you were born until you are 18 years old. That's the youth market. So how do I get you as a client of the bank when you were just born, and then go with you all the way up until when you make the decision, you continue to choose me. So I went out, and I did the plans, and this is how we're going to do it, and these are the products, and I presented to the board. And by this time, I'm talking to the board. So that's this is great, it's fantastic, it's exactly what we needed, but it's a little too aggressive. Let's sit on it for a while. But how about we also need a strategy to get into private banking, wealth management. Citibank is world famous for its Citi Gold services. Now, but Citi Gold, the people that have access to this is real private banking, when they do this when they broker these deals so that Merck can be bought by Pfizer, and the people that belong to Citigold are the guys that are brokering the deals. They are the owners of these things, and they are the CEOs of the stupid rich, I call them. Because it's when you know how much money they have, you look stupid because you cannot imagine the amount of money. So it's stupid rich. And that didn't work. There's a few stupid rich people in Mexico, but they could not use Citigold for wealth management, for run-of-the-mill people with $250,000, $500,000, so they could manage their investments and stuff like that. So I went out, I came back, so we're going to develop this, and this is how we're going. And the branches where we're going to have private banking are going to be these branches that we already have, and these are the products, and this is I even did the job descriptions of the people that we had to. So we're going to need these people, and we're going to need this, and then I've already validated everything with HR, and it's okay. Oh, this is fantastic, this is great, but it's a little too aggressive. And that's it. That's it. I had a commitment with Citibank to work for them for a year, at least a year after they bought my debt. I left at a year and a day. And I realized that it was, they were paying me, you're going to have to excuse my French because I don't know another word, okay? But they were paying me a shitload of money. And it didn't make a difference, just to work and nothing coming out of on the other end. Said, I cannot do this. This is worse than the withering of the machine. I've been here for a year and I have absolutely nothing to show for it. And it's not going to happen because these people are afraid. They are afraid. They don't know how to handle. They brought us in because we had the experience with the big numbers, with the millions of customers, and they're afraid. The top brass they are paralyzed by fear. So I left.
So that was sort of the end of your big corporate run. And you had learned a ton, but then you had an opportunity and you jumped to a company called BitTime. BitTime.com. And this is during the .com bonanza. It's end of the 1990s, beginning of the 2000s, when all of these .coms emerged. And there was. So this was bigger than Monkey Banana.
No. This is all the way down to the watermelon. It's BitTime. They had this. They were gonna do incentives, loyalty schemes for online activity. So if you visit this website, you will get these points. And if you purchase at this site, you will get these points. And it was called Trocamania. Trocamania. And they said, they chose the word troca because trocar in Portuguese means to exchange. So that makes perfect sense. They said, no, it doesn't make it. How do you choose this name? Why? Because in Mexico, a troca is what we call a pickup truck. So now we have pickup truck mania in Mexico. And I'm trying to explain this to people and then we were measured. I never met my KPIs. Never. I never met my KPIs. It was, we have to have so many Trocamania members, and then you have to give away so many trocas, and then, how many trocas did you sell this month? No, we got an invoice for $1,000. And they would go like bananas. We're never going to be profitable doing this. So I didn't care. I really didn't care. But because if I remembered one thing clearly from that day that I had my synapses at Banamex, creating this loyalty and rewards program, is I would pay good money for someone to do this for me. But there was no one doing that for me because loyalty programs didn't exist. But now I was sitting in front of something that operated on the web. So I went and I sold an incentive program to Motorola. So they could incentivize the salespeople of their dealers, but not for phones. This was the two-way radios. This is what built Motorola. This is a technology that Motorola was built on, was two-way radios. The radios that the police use, that they use in construction, maritime environments, these radios.
So what you
Not walkie-talkies, radios.
What you identified was, rather than BitTime being the brand and dealing in points, is you recognized that they had built a platform, and that platform could be white labeled and host something like a Motorola
and it was
loyalty
called
program.
Club Elite. Club Elite rewarded the salespeople of Motorola's dealers for every radio that they sold. Because they sold Motorola radios, but they also sold 20 other brands. It's very hard to find a distribution channel that is exclusive to one brand. And by very difficult, I mean it doesn't exist.
So unlike many .bomb startups that were complete hype, this actually had a business model.
They didn't have it.
But you were seeing it.
And then one day I came and I said, okay, we'll say the Trocomania. Okay, look, guys. We can do this, but I just sold this to Motorola. But what do you mean? Yeah, we're going to use the platform that we have to do this. But no, this is so dead, and we're going to have to. They're going to give us, just to build it, $125,000. They've never seen an invoice north of $5,000 in this company. They're going to give us, just to build it, $125,000. And they're going to give us, every month, $20,000 just to keep it running. And then they're going to buy from us the rewards. And we're going to keep anything between 2 and 7.5% of that money. And they're going to give 3% of what they sell into rewards. And how much they sell? They sell north of $100 million a year. But if you want, I will go and sell your Trocomania. I don't know. If I was a CEO, I know where I'd go, but hey, I'm not. So, and then the company immediately shifted. We ditched Trocomania and we made MTOs, made-to-order programs. And we became a company, the only company that did loyalty and incentives programs in Mexico, tailored to every single business that we went to. That's what BitTime became.
And what happened to BitTime?
First of all, we were one of the very few .coms that didn't go bust. And one of the very few is over 90% of the .coms became extinct. And with that was thousands of millions of dollars that were poured into this new economy. The new economy was invented in the Industrial Revolution, not by doing business online.
By the way, just one editorial note. I love your impression of people that are not from Mexico. You're sneaking, you're sneaking it in occasionally, and it's amazing. So continue.
Okay. So it's, I don't know that I do that. Okay. So it's one day again, and we had just received, I don't know if you're familiar with SoftBank. SoftBank is
They're the world's largest investment firm. Bar none.
bar none.
Yeah, yeah.
And we landed investment from SoftBank to continue on our new direction in north of the $5 million figure. And in these times, and these times I'm saying 2000, 2001, this amount of investment in a firm like ours, it was unheard of. And so yeah, we're happy times, and we're developing, and we're growing, and now we're managing programs for companies like Xerox. Somebody must have known someone there. We're running programs for. I don't know if you were familiar with iMation. They were the #1 competition of verbatim floppy disks. Remember, this is pre-Meteorite, okay? 3Com. Do you remember 3Com? We were doing things for 3Com, Apple. So we landed this investment, and then one day I got an email. Immediately I knew I shouldn't have received this, because it was they were reporting expenses to our SoftBank liaison. And there were people in the payroll that didn't work in the company. Like the chief marketing officer was a head honcho wife. And, but not one person. So the wife of the CEO, the wife of the CFO, the wife of this was, and then I found out. So I got on a plane. I went to, we're headquartered in Miami. I went to Miami and said, hey guys, what? So somebody made a boo-boo. Why? Yes, and you sent me this. Oh, no. This.
See, that's it right there.
Okay.
Just so you're aware, it's awesome.
And it was, like, I'm not here to have a conversation. I'm not here to have a discussion. I'm here to tell you that I'm leaving. If they ask me why I'm leaving, I will tell them. But I cannot know what I know. No. If you think, what do you think I'm here because I'm here, I want in the end? No. It's over. I'm gone. You can keep your company. You can keep your clients. You can keep everything. Here, there you go. I'm not taking anything with me. And if SoftBank comes, if someone from SoftBank comes and asks me, well, Alberto, why are you leaving? We generated over 40% of the sales of the company by this time. And that includes the US, where we were based. So if they come and ask, I'm telling. So no, I'm already doing you a favor. I'm just leaving because I could leave and send an email right before I leave. So it's, so I left. And I created a new company called Uno a Uno, one-to-one solutions. And so yeah, what I did tell them, what I am keeping, I'm keeping the offices, and I'm keeping the team. And since I'm going to keep the team, you're going to fire him. You're going to fire everybody. In Mexico, if you get fired, there's also no discussion. The minimum price tag on firing someone in Mexico is 3 months' salary. And then 20 days per each year worked. And then you start adding up, I don't know, fairy dust and other things. But that's the basement. So you're going to fire everybody, and you're going to give them their severance payment. I'm keeping the offices, I'm keeping the team, and we're keeping the computers. No, but what? That you don't like the deal? No, we love the deal. I thought you will. So it's, So I went back, said, okay, guys, everybody's getting fired. But now, why? They said, no, well, you can say no. But if you say no, you're going to have to go work wherever they open the new offices, because I'm separating from them. I'm keeping the offices, and whoever wants to stay here, your salary for the next 3 months is your severance payment. Why? Because I'm going to pay you 0 for the next 3 months. Why? Because we're going to build this company in 3 months from the ground up, and I cannot use my money to pay you. That's why I got you severance payment. And so that's how we got started. Uno a uno got started, and we lasted all of a year. We lasted a year because BitTime got sold. So it was just a matter of time before someone else sent the wrong email to the wrong person again. It's just one thing that is true about poop, and it floats. So it always makes it to the top. It always makes it to the top. No, it's and you don't have to be a genius to know this. So it floated, and then it floated, and then it not only floated, it hit the fan, and it was. But that's why I guess that's why they call it a shit show. And but by now they didn't have Mexico. They managed to keep, of all the clients that we had, they managed to keep one, Motorola. And the new owners wanted to get the company because they wanted, another company, a UK-based company called the Grassroots Group, which was part of PwC. PwC is the largest conglomerate of advertising agencies in the world. And the Grassroots Group was part of PwC, wanted to buy BitTime. And then they were in talks, then the shit hit the fan, the new owners come in, they're buying this company because they know Grassroots wants in, so they come in, and this is happening, and then they called me back, said, we cannot sell to Grassroots. Why? Because we don't have Mexico anymore. And we went from, we don't have anything, and you only have your severance payment, to billing exactly the same that we were billing a year before, in a year. So, and they lost everything that we had, and they only had Motorola. And so they said, come back. Okay, I'll come back. Oh, that's fantastic. No, right, you haven't heard how I'm going to come back, because if you think you're going to give me money, you're crazy. You're going to give me equity. So when we sell, not you, when we sell to Grassroots, then I cash out. Because I don't want your dollars, I want their pounds. It's 1 + 1, it's, oh, come on. And so, yeah, we became Grassroots, and I stayed on as a country manager for Mexico. And that was a team. And half of them are still in IncentivAction today. And so we did that, and then I got called to manage not Mexico, but go to the U.S. and become the VP for Latin America and manage all of Latin America, which I did. And then the guy that took me there, he left the company, and a new CEO for the Americas was appointed, a Brit, and we just didn't see eye to eye on how we should go about it. I told him, Senor, you have to listen to me, because I eat rice and beans on a daily basis, and you eat fish and chips. So we cannot go into Latin America with fish and chips. We have to go with arroz and frijoles. Please. No. I said, this is not going to end well. So why don't we part now when we're all friends? And that's that. Okay, that's that. What I did not see coming is that these guys that were there, they all got fired the next day because they were part of the Beto team. And there's no one from this guy's team that's going to stay on board. I could not go back to and just let's start another one. No, we started uno a uno. No, I can't. Why? Because my contract was signed in the U.S. and it was in the U.S. an NDA is enforceable. In Mexico, it's not. If you sign your contract in Mexico and your contract has an NDA, it is as useful as ash.
Do you mean a non-compete?
A non-compete agreement.
Got it.
Yeah. A non-compete, not an NDA, a non-compete.
Yeah.
You cannot, the Constitution in Mexico does not allow someone to be, you cannot tell someone not to do what they know what to do for a living. If you're going to do that, you have to pay them. So they don't do it. So it never happens. So these guys, they all had NDAs, non-competes, but they did not go with them. They just started the new company and said, wait, but we want you to come here. I can't. Why? Because I signed my contract in a different country, but you're not there anymore, so who cares? Because I won't even be able to travel here. The La Migra is going to be waiting for me at the airport the moment that I get. No, I don't need that problem. I don't need the problem. So I got called back by Citibank. By this time, it was Citibanamex. Tired of waiting for the people at the Citibank to stop being afraid, Citibank went one up, and they bought the largest bank in Mexico. With the idea that the people that are running this bank, they're going to run Citibank. So they bought this, and they fired everybody else that were the heads of Citibank. They got themselves out of a job because they were too afraid. So Citibanamex was, after a while, they decided that they wanted to get out of some businesses. Citi is a very fickle institution. What they want today, they probably won't want tomorrow. Citibank has gone into consumer banking all over the world 10 times, and they've left 10 times. So they buy banks, and then they sell those banks, and then they buy them again, of course, for more money, and then they buy it for 10, they sell for 8, and then someone else comes in, and no, we should be in consumer banking again. Okay, let's do it. Yeah. And they buy at 12, and then they sell at 8 again. And they wanted out of, the credit card business has two sides, issuing and accepting. And the acceptance side of the business, they wanted to sell. But it had been neglected for quite some time. And so the guy that fired me many, many years ago, the guy that hired me at Banamex, who was very mad at me because I didn't go back after I got the scholarship. I mean, hold a grudge, come on. I didn't invent this. I wasn't the only dude that didn't go back in the history of Banamex. They know it's a lottery of who's coming back. You really wanted me back? Yes, you should have offered me more money to come back, so I wouldn't be enticed by someone else to go with them. So they called me and they said, we need to revamp this business because we want to sell it. And so they said, well, you have to be very, very aware of two things. What? Number one, I am not going to go back to the corporate world forever. I mean, we're just talking, and just the idea of me having to wear a suit again every day, oh my God, I'm developing a rash. No, already, it's so bad, so bad. And And two, you have to remember who you're talking to. Because if I have to revamp this business in a year and a half, because that's what you're going to get from me, I'm going to rock the boat. And people are going to be running for the life rafts. And banks are, outside of government, the most hierarchical places to work in the world. It's people from this level, they don't just show up and talk to people from this level. It doesn't happen. It's you have to be invited. You have to be given the floor, or you don't just waltz into a director's office at a bank. And even I was coming back in at a pretty high level. But still, there were going to be people on top of me. There's always someone on top of you. Today, I own my business, and there's always someone on top of me. Just to begin with, my wife. No?
So speaking of that, you settled down very late. You said around 40?
Yes.
And so just to fast track the Citibank, you redeveloped that, and then we'll introduce this chapter. You now have...
Areli, my wife, and Andrea and Santiago, twins, boy and girl. And that's this picture is probably 3 years old. So yeah, they still loved me then. They're 13 now, so they're now second guessing it.
And so that non-compete basically was in place for a year-ish, and you could then rejoin your compatriots.
I rejoined the people at IncentivAction. Mm-hmm. IncentivAction was already running. Two partners were there, Salvador and Eric, and they say, come back in. Eric is the guy that builds all of our technology. And I've always said this, if he walks one day, I'm walking behind him. It's over. And Salvador was in charge of sales. But they didn't have, everything else is what I did. And it wasn't, they said, we need you to come back because yeah, I'm good at selling, but we have to design the products and we have to, how are we going to operate them? And the people from accounts, they have to be able to solve client problems. And then there's HR and finance. We cannot balance a checkbook. And so they gave me a few targets. And they said, if you reach these targets, we will give you 30% of the business. I reached those targets, and after I reached those targets, and I got my share of the business, and then Salvador left. He left. He said, "I don't want to do this anymore," and so he sold to us, to Eric and me. We now each own 49% of the company, not 50-50. The other 2% is owned by our accountant. And if we cannot make a decision together, the accountant he is the guy that sways the balance. It's so do you want an accountant to be making decisions for you? So we get along pretty well.
And so these are some photos of
our office, which we really like. Be strong. We whisper to our Wi-Fi signal.
And I think this is your office.
That's the entrance to my office, yes.
And along the way, you also had some accolades from Entrepreneur Magazine and some other businesses you started. And so just like the audience here, as I was seeing all of this story unfold in front of me, I kept thinking, but he's in Chilliwack. But what's going on there? And so just to contrast the Mexico City aerial photo, I found one of our humble little city. But I'm intrigued, like, why Canada and why specifically Chilliwack, and what is your next chapter?
Well, why Canada? It's I don't like living in Mexico. At least not anymore. I liked it when I was a kid. Today, Mexico has no outside, and by no outside is, if I let my kid go to the store, he probably won't come back. It's just that, it's that bad. Security is a huge problem. We're fortunate enough that we live in a closed, in a gated community, and it's big enough so they can ride the bike inside and whatever. They all have my disease, both Santiago and Andrea. Santiago is a Taekwondo black belt, and he just recently won his first 2 parkour competitions. Andrea is a gymnast, but she competes now at the national level. She is, if she doesn't stop doing it, worst case scenario, I don't have to pay for college. She's that good, and she is as competitive as her dad. And Santiago is as well, so he cannot fathom the idea that she can get something that he can't. So they got the disease. But they have to be taken everywhere. They have, fortunately in Mexico, having a driver and a maid at home doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's also a very clear picture of the reality of the country. So while, yes, we do have it, and I do believe that we treat the people that help us very differently than most, there's still people that help us. And they have to help us because they didn't get the same chance. We don't all get the same chances. And I understand that happens all over the world. But the difference is so ingrained in Mexico, and the way that this government is where it's taking us. So one thing that I didn't tell you is that the very first day that I started working for Citibank after the MBA, I was sent to a conference for all the youth market managers for Citibank. And that happened in Vancouver. And I stayed at the hotel in Canada Place. And I said, how can a place like this exist in the world? The woods have a city inside. And there's an ocean, and they said, this is where I want to live. I've lived in outside of Mexico for several times. I worked for something that is not here, and through college I left, and I worked for Disney. I lived in Orlando. Of course, I lived in upstate New York when I was getting my MBA. My kids are American because they were born in Miami when I was living there. And so I wanted to live in North America, but not necessarily in the US. If I had chosen the US, that probably would have been Washington State, Oregon. So it's still like a really close to here. And then you start doing some research, and you see best cities to live in the world. And the only 2 cities in the world that are in the top 10 are in Canada. So again, I'm not that smart, but I'm really not stupid. So I said, that's where I want to go. So I started the process, and it's a very long story, and Tim is not going to let me go through that story. But after that very long story, I ended up applying and being accepted by the provincial nominee program. And they said I had to open my offices in Chilliwack. A lot of people ask me, why? I don't know. You're going to have to ask them. Because I don't know, and I don't care.
So it turns out, even in Mexico, if you search for offices in Chilliwack, Cowork Chilliwack ranks number 1.
That is correct. And that's why I'm here. And I live in Abbotsford. I live in Abbotsford because I did also doing some research for Andrea, my daughter, when everybody actually comes up here. The best gymnastics complex in the Vancouver metropolitan area is in Abbotsford. So that's why I chose Abbotsford. It's been a challenge. That's why I'm glad to meet you. Because for all the people that are immigrating into Canada, it is the one thing that's become really to a surprise to me is when you get here, it's a very hostile place for an immigrant. And I did not expect that. What do I mean by that? I live in a place, I don't live where I want to live. I live where I was allowed to rent. And I was allowed to rent from a company that rents apartments. Because I applied to rent at probably 20 places, and they all turned me down because I didn't have a credit history. But I don't have a credit history because I just got here. Okay, let me do this. I will pay you the year's rent in advance. Oh no, you're going to trash my place. So it's, and there's small things like that. There was a problem, and I created the problem, me and my immigration lawyers. Because by the time that I got my permit, my approval, to the time that I got here, 2 years passed. Because I got my approval, yes, you're approved, come on over, December 2020. So March, the borders are closed. So I couldn't travel. No, 2019, because the borders were closed on March 2020. Only Canadian, permanent residents, and essential workers could come into the country. And I know that monkey banana is not essential. So I had to wait until the borders were open again, which was November of 2021. I was probably the third person to get here. The fourth, maybe. And but all this time, my passport's expiry date kept approaching. No one paid attention to this, not me, not my immigration lawyers. And then I get in, and as you walk into the Vancouver airport, I don't know if you've seen that on the right is the immigration office. And that's where you go with the letter that they gave you. You got that on your email, and then they give you your work permit there. And we're going to give you a work permit for 6 months. Why? Because your passport is valid for 6 months. So I had to, the next time I went to Mexico, had to get a new passport, and then we reapplied for an extension of my work permit. This happened in May. And I got this extension 3 weeks ago. But what could I not get? I had a social insurance number that expired on July, because that's when my work permit expired. My driver's license is a piece of paper. I could not get a driver's license. I don't have a health number. I rely on my personal health insurance, which fortunately is Bupa, and I'm covered all over the world. But what happens to people that come here and they don't have this insurance, and people that cannot get a driver's license, and they cannot get a health number, and they cannot... So this is what I mean by a hostile environment. I don't think... Canada is like my bosses at Citibank. They're afraid of the volume. So we need the people to come in, but we just don't know how to handle the people. And I found a small caveat on I had to sign a performance agreement with the province of British Columbia on my PMP. And that outlines how much money I have to invest, how much people do I have to hire. It's a commitment. They didn't give me this because he makes really good monkey banana jokes. No, he's proven that he has a business, that it works, so he's going to come here, he's going to create an X amount of jobs. And I had to guess, they wanted the jobs to be created in Chilliwack. That's why they said, you have to live in Chilliwack, and they gave me a leash. And that leash is where I can live. I can only live X amount of kilometers away from where the office is, and I get as far as Langley. But Twisters, the gymnastics place, is in Abbotsford, so yeah, that's within the leash. And this is okay. I knew this when I was applying. Are you aware? Yes, I am aware. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. Why? Because it's where I want to live. And it turns out that I really like it here. I really like it here. Now that I'm riding my bike again, and I just get out. I could not do this living in downtown Vancouver. And I never want to live there because I'm getting out of the city. I don't want to go back. I drive 5 minutes on my car, put my bike on the road, and I pedal for hours.
Well, let's start this over. You guys repeat after me. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Canada. You are welcome to be here.
Thank you. And
so let's hear it for Alberto. Just a wonderful story, and it's just getting started. I'm going to cut it short. We went a little bit long, but there's plenty of time to pin him down for more questions and so forth. But just absolutely wonderful story.
Thank you very much for having me.
And lots of great business insights and just your tenacity. You will have whipped Canada immigration into the way it should be done. I can see it. So thank you so much.